Well, I figured this thing out. Hi, everybody. My name is Tom Barnes. This is my first time recording live on social media here in a long time, actually. First time I've done it with my YouTube channel, and I figured I'd do a podcast and I do it once a week, and I've done it for like 22 weeks in a row. So I figured, why not be the final one of this season be a live one? So that's what this one is. So I want to thank folks who have been watching and tuning in and following me and subscribing. Please do all the things. So you got the YouTube page, Stories from the 78. So if you can subscribe, that would be wonderful. And also go to the website, storiesfromthe78.com. So I thought I'd take a moment here to kind of just recalibrate exactly what I do for Stories from the 78. People ask, what the hell does that mean? Well, there are currently 77 neighborhoods, but if you follow the White Sox, and they've been in the news for things that are not exactly great. Recently, they were in the news for putting a baseball field in the middle of a desolate area called the 78. And the White Sox are putting that ballpark there because they want to build, they put a baseball field there because they want to build a ballpark there on the piece of land that is called the 78, which would be the 78th neighborhood in Chicago. So I'm betting on Chicago in this one in the long run that we will get this thing built. Maybe not the ballpark, but the 78 will be built. The land is too valuable. It's right there along the Chicago River at Roosevelt and Clark Street. It's just this wonderful spot of land that I think, as I remember the story goes, used to be controlled by a guy, maybe Resco was his name. Don't quote me on that, but controlled by somebody that was caught doing something they shouldn't be doing, a politician of sorts that went to jail, and they lost the land. And then it was sitting there doing nothing for years and years and years. And now a developer has its hands in it. And Jerry Reinsdorf's trying to get public money to build the White Sox another stadium with public money. I don't think it's going to happen as far as getting money. Like, Jerry, you're going to have to pony up and just pay for the ballpark yourself, which you should do since you got a free one the first time around when you got the team, and maybe build it facing the city this time. I'm just saying. Anyhow, I digress. So the 78 is for the 78 neighborhoods in Chicago, and I can comfortably say that saying that our 78 goes in hand because of the White Sox news in the 78. So there you go. Now, within those 78 neighborhoods, there are hundreds of other neighborhoods. So you have Lakeview, but in Lakeview, you have the Southport Corridor, you have Wrigleyville. On the south side, you have Garfield Ridge, Clearing, and then there's little sub neighborhoods within that. So I kind of just do it all. And then I randomly will travel, right? So if you look on the page today, as this is live right now, what time is it? Where am I at here? It's at 12:22 on Friday, October 4th. The front page of Stories from the 78 is what I was doing in Massachusetts this week. I was hanging out in Boston, Salem, Cape Cod, all the things for a baby moon. And one of the last stories I posted was to step inside the heart of Halloween in Salem at the Haunted Happenings, which I didn't know it existed up until, the wife and I decided that we wanted to go to Cape Cod for a baby moon. And it's the end of the summer. It won't be so busy. The leaves will be changing. None of that was really happening. The leaves weren't changing just yet. It's been warm. And the amount of people that were in Cape Cod was slim. But up in Salem, it was packed because it was this Halloween Happenings thing where it is like a Halloween festival. And have you ever seen the movie Trick or Treat, the Halloween movie? I have like here we go. This is fine. So why not? Pull this thing out. This is the movie I'm talking about, Trick or Treat. Right? There's parts in that movie that are at like a Halloween festival, and this was that, but like on steroids. It was fantastic. It was a great time. But you get to walk around like Salem, Massachusetts, and all of the things that make it Salem, Massachusetts, including, the areas where Hocus Pocus was filmed, and part 2, apparently. But more historical are the Salem witch trials and the judge's house, which I believe is called the witch's house, that's painted all black. And then you get to go and you find the courthouse where they were, tried. And then you can find the spot called Proctor's Ledge where the witches were hung or hanged. Sorry, this is live, so I get to just be frisky. It's only been up for a few years, the memorial that is in Salem, Massachusetts, because for years and years and years they kind of just like side-eyed the whole thing. Like they were like, I don't want to know about this. We don't want to talk about it. It was wrong. We're sorry. Let's move on. And over the years, people have made enough fuss about it, which they should have, and memorialized this event because it's a part of American history, even though it happened before we were America. This was happening in 1692 and 1693. But the site at Proctor's Ledge is like right off, it's right in the middle of a neighborhood, it's conveniently behind a Walgreens. And then there's, houses. Like there's a house that butts up right against the property line there. And then there's this beautiful memorial that has the names of the people that were hanged, and it's lit up by lights, and you can sit down. There's a tree. The wife said that the tree was like the oldest American tree on record as far as species is concerned. And it's just a quiet little spot there along the way there, and you get to reflect there. And I'll finish up my story about Massachusetts since this is called Stories from the 70s about Chicago, but I digress. The story's cool because apparently in Salem, there's Dansworth or Dansbury or something like that. It's a town that's outside of Salem, and it used to be called like Salem something. It was a part of like the Salem universe, if you will, of Salem, Massachusetts, like Salem Hills or something like that. That is actually where the courthouse was, where they were, or the village hall, where they were convicted, tried, and the whole thing. And that's where they decided to execute them. So we traveled up, and one of the stories that is posted on the website is that memorial site, which is pretty outstanding as far as memorial sites are concerned, because there's a lot there. Sad in its texture and the story that it spins about the people that were murdered, essentially executed, and what their last will and testament was as they were about to be hanged. It was a pretty powerful spot. But the most interesting thing about that site, again, stories from 78.com, it's up there, is that part of the house that was there, the meeting house, it was deconstructed, it was abandoned, deconstructed, and then they just laid the pieces of wood on the other side of the street, and they just let it like seep into the ground and be done with it. And that's where the memorial is. So I don't know, it's a cool story, and those are the things that I like to do. And I couldn't really do that as something that I would, get paid to do as a job, just travel around and check out cool things. I mean, in a perfect world I could, but that's just not the perfect world. So I decided to start my own website where I can do stories that perhaps are like a little bit on the fringe, and some that are not, some that are completely dead on. I'm trying to go back here to the last Chicago story I did, which was Oktoberfest, a Bavarian celebration in the heart of Lakeview. I'm going to post something about Wine Festival that's happening this weekend in Lincoln Park, right at that park that is at Sheffield, Wrightwood, and Lincoln. It's that park that you kind of always see on the train. You always look out and you're like, there's always something going on there, that park. So that's going on this weekend. But I talked to Chicago authors, and I talked to Daniel Kraus. He wrote a book with George Romero, and that's called Pay the Piper. And George Romero, of Living Dead fame, created all that whole universe. But Daniel Kraus lives in the Chicago area. He wrote The Shape of Water. He's worked with Guillermo del Toro, who's done like Cabinets of Curiosity that's on Netflix. So a lot of connections there, but those are the people I get to talk about, and those are the people that make up stories from the 78. So I'm just going to go through a couple because, like I said, and I also did something recently with a organization called Decompose, and they did something on Robeson, which was Paul Robeson is the musician, black musician. They did a whole musical event at the auditorium. I'm sorry, where was this at? At the Harris Theater, downtown Chicago, highlighting his life and his work. And I got to talk to the members of Decompose, which is an organization that kind of keeps that legacy alive. And it was a lot of fun, and I get to talk to folks like that throughout. And then, of course, I do all the fun things that are businesses in the city and people that you can talk about in the city that make the city go. Like, for example, I talked to this gentleman a few weeks back, and his grandfather, I should say, invented the engine that flew the Wright brothers plane. Like, come on. like the Wright brothers. You know what I mean? I'm looking for it on the site because I want to make sure that I reference it correctly here, but I don't. Oh, here we go. And the title, it's a long title, just because I wasn't really, sometimes people post stories because they know it's gonna go viral, man, and all that other stuff. I don't care, honestly, if these go viral or not. These are just fun stories that I like to tell. And I don't do this by myself. I should say that somebody that's been with me since day one, his name is Sean Bush. He designed the website. He put my idea onto the web, and it became this beautiful thing that is storiesfromthe78.com. Sean is a teacher or professor at DePaul University. We played softball for years. It's like such a Chicago story where we met on a softball field, and we've been friends for like 20 years. But Sean and my wife, who designed a lot of the artwork that you see on the website, and my friend Laura, who writes for the site as a hobby of hers. She has a few stories up there as well. And we write about things that we love. Like Laura wrote this awesome story about the Electric Funeral Bar in Bridgeport. And if you like Ozzy, if you like just bizarre, weird, awesome things, you'll love this spot in Bridgeport. You should definitely check it out. Laura wrote a great story about it. But I digress because I wanted to talk about this gentleman here. And so the title is From Childhood Summers with the Wright Brothers Mechanic to Restoring Classic Cars, Reuben Taylor carries a legacy of innovation and craftsmanship. So Reuben's grandfather was the inventor of the Wright Brothers engine that is used to take flight and the whole thing. But Reuben's got a great story in itself. He's in his like mid 90s, and I got to meet him by way of doing an interview with Connie Fairbanks, who does a lot of stuff in the West Loop. She wrote a wonderful book about the West Loop and the history of the West Loop, and we got to talking about Reuben and his friend who owns Thalia Hall, or did own or not Thalia Hall. The church that's right there on Western Avenue that I can't think of right now because I'm doing this live. But it's the place where it's a music venue that was a church right there by the United Center. They're part of the old regime that was in the neighborhood, and Reuben collects cars. And he doesn't just collect them, he restores them. And I'm not just any kind of car. He does Lincoln town cars, or Lincolns in general. And he's got, wow, I don't know. He's got a couple hundred versions of Lincolns or parts of Lincolns in this massive space that is in the West Loop. And it's not like something you can tour. You kind of just have to know somebody to get you in. And that is exactly the experience that I got with Reuben. And he walked me through this, and he's got like machine parts to build Lincoln town cars from like the 1920s and 30s. He's got chassis, he's got carburetors and transmissions and clutches and tires and full body cars just hanging out in this space that is in the most unassuming space that you can imagine in Chicago. That's where all this stuff hangs out. And it's been his lifelong passion to restore cars. And he's got like a random like Jeep from 1989 hanging out, the Jeep Cherokee from 89 in this spot where you got all these Lincolns everywhere. It's beautiful. And the story was so unbelievable that I didn't believe it at first. So therefore, then I was like, you know what? Can I come visit this? And the story on the website is the tour of this space that's like underground in a building in Chicago. It's just one of those stories that I've done where I'm like, nobody would believe me. Nobody would. So I have to get it on video. So that's what I did. I did a story with Reuben, and it was one of my favorite stories I've ever done. And it's the reason why I wanted to start this website. And, I left television news for a little while. I was at WGN for 15 years. And I was, got a better offer to do something a little different at the time, and that didn't work out. It was a nonprofit that was really not for me. It was kind of gross how they ran things, and even worse how they treated their people. And I needed to get out of there, so I got back into TV and at CBS Chicago. So I wanted to. I started the website because I wanted to stay doing the things that I loved about television. But I wasn't in it. So I started the website, and then I've just kept it because I do stories that, some of them overlap with what goes on CBS, and that always gets the love first. But I try to tell it in a different way for this website, or I like to break it down and have, the story with Reuben was like 20 minutes long. It was just letting this man talk who's been on this planet for 90 plus years. So I've learned that people who are on this planet for 90 plus years have a great story to tell, regardless if it's a Netflix documentary or not. It's a great story. So, and then throughout that, I'll sprinkle in the things that I think are fun and unique and weird, like the Salem haunted happenings, What else have I got up in here? Let's see. Oh, Buddha Bob's in Cape Cod, which is this is random. We bought pumpkins from Buddha Bob's in Cape Cod and shipped them back here because the wife and I love Halloween, and they have like again in this movie Trick or Treat, which is all it's like if you haven't seen this Halloween movie, it's fantastic. There's a scene in there where they have like these pumpkins that are flaming with flames behind them, right? And we saw something we've always wanted to have something like that, but nobody makes those except they kind of make something very similar to what we're looking for at Buddha Bob's. So that's what we did. And that's why there's a bunch of stuff from Massachusetts up on the website. I even have a story about the History of Sex Museum. It's up there. I don't think YouTube likes the story so much because it got buried, I think, in the algorithm, and like 8 people have seen it all the way through. But either way, it's up there. A used bookstore that I checked out in Massachusetts, kind of just chronicling what we did in the Boston area, and had a lot of fun doing it. But one of the bigger story, excuse me, one of the bigger stories that I've done that I was really proud of was a story about Stern Pinball and and Pookie Crab Cakes in Bronzeville. If you haven't done the Pookie Crack Cakes, and I said crack like as in but Pookie Crack Cakes are phenomenal, and they sell out every day. They have about 600 cakes, and they sell out. And that's when they close. And then they don't really stay open because they don't really have to after they're sold out. That place, definitely worth the ride. But Stern Pinball is one of the website or one of the stories I did on the website where you get kind of the behind the scenes look at how pinball machines are made, and they're made here in Chicago. Chicago's kind of the capital of the pinball world, and you get to see that front and center in this particular video that I posted. And if you look on the website, you'll see Pilsen, Crystal Lake, Elk Grove, Massachusetts, Wisconsin. Those are let you know to kind of where things are. And then if you click on, like if I click into, let's say, Wisconsin, it'll bring you to the page that is all the stories from Wisconsin that I've done over the years. And I've done a story even with Martin Schreiber, who is the former governor of Wisconsin, who shares a story, this heartwarming story of his wife who had Alzheimer's and how he had to like, you know, mourn her loss twice, when she lost her memory and when she lost her life, you know, or something like the Kringle place up in Kenosha, or where thereabouts. Let's see exactly. Do I have the name, the actual town it was in? I'm probably forgetting the town, but they have the Christmas Kringle that they put out every year. It's this Danish bakery in Racine, Wisconsin. But it's, you know, a short drive between Milwaukee and Chicago. So yeah, check it out. But anyhow, go back to Stearns. You get to see the behind the scenes tour of the Stern Pinball Factory. It is such a cool thing. And, you know, I did the story like last year, like before when I was still working in the nonprofit from hell, and the I did it, and I kind of just buried it because I was working at the nonprofit that I hated so much. The story kind of reminded me of working there, so I kind of just sat on it for a long time, and then I was like, what am I doing? So I edited it, and it was a beast to edit. So I edited the piece and put it out, and there you have it. It's up there, and it's one of the most viewed videos that I posted in this generation that is stories from the 78. So a fun story, fascinating story. And it was right after talking to Emily Bleeker, who I found out randomly that she was an alum at Sandburg High School. At the same time, I was at Stagg High School on Chicago's southwest side there in the burbs, both graduates of the class of 98. But she wrote a book, and we shared a bunch of stories about that. So I go on and I talk about stories that I've done. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's took 5 minutes, 5 seconds to look at the website, watch a video, or if you're watching this now, there might not be anybody watching this now. They could be talking to nobody, but at least it'll be posted and it'll have proof that I did it because I said I wanted to do it, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm going to continue to do it because I love to do it. And I had the support of Mr. Sean Bush and Laura Barnes and Laura P. Neary. Who keeps it going, and I get to travel and see great things about Chicago. I have a few things I want to do on the south side of Chicago. I got down there to South Chicago, South Shore, Grand Crossing. I'm gonna go to Hegwish because I feel like those are parts of the city that a lot of people don't talk about. So I'm going to talk about them, and we're going to do things with them, and they're going to be great. But in the meantime, I'm going to kind of just drop in stories as I see them. I still got a few more. Massachusetts one did something really cool. I'd never been to Connecticut in my life, and on this trip to Boston, we went to Mystic, Connecticut. And if anybody knows anything about Mystic Pizza, you know that Julia Roberts was in the movie and it was filmed in Mystic, Connecticut. I didn't realize that there was a Mystic, Connecticut. I thought it was just a cool name of a movie. Mystic Pizza, though, is in Mystic, Connecticut. We went there. We had the pizza. The pizza was awesome. The pizza parlor was amazing. They had all of these wonderful artifacts from like it's like stepping back into like 1987, really. You know, maybe a little bit dipping our toes into the early 90s, but that's kind of where it stops as far as the memorabilia on the wall. And that's perfectly okay because that hits my age group right on par. And the pizza was phenomenal. So I'll have my pizza review up there, a little bit of the history of that. But that's some of the stuff that is coming this weekend. Again, I'm doing the story that will be published later today about the wine festival happening in Lincoln Park. But throughout the weeks, you'll notice I'll get a little bit more behind the scenes on some of the stories that I do. And to give you, since I talked about the pinball place, the people there were great. They let me kind of like wander around throughout the factory on my whole setup that I have. And it was just a cool way to see, Chicago manufacturing at its best. And yes, it's in Elk Grove, but you know what I mean? The pinball capital of the world is Chicago, because in Chicago, all points everywhere outward, right? We have all these trains and planes and automobiles where the epicenter is in Chicago, and then it's dispersed outwards. That is the model that they use for the pinball place. Another thing that was very similar that's on the site as well is the Jardiniere place. And you'll have to just type in Jardiniere on the old website and you'll see the story that pops up. Another behind the scenes look at how our Jardinières made here in Chicago, the same Jardiniere that Portillo's uses and whatnot. You get to see a look at it. And it's a family owned business that kind of just started because nobody else was doing the thing, and they started doing it, and it just becomes this wonderful story that is now the Jardiniere place. And I would say the name of it, but I can't remember it right now off the top of my head because, of course, I'm thinking about 100 other things and keeping this broadcast moving along. But before I leave, again, thank you for watching and listening. It's on Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, all the places, the podcast, and that's what this is. But the website, every day we got something up there, or just about every day. Even when I was on vacation, I wanted to see if I could do it, whatever. A little bit of a pain, but still did it. That's what the Massachusetts stuff's up there for. That's why the shorter videos and the long form videos are about a lot of things happening in Chicago. I'm going to try to do something very cool with Halloween and hauntings in Chicago by an expert ghost hunter. I'm going to try to do something about Mothman, because apparently Mothman is a big deal. A lot of sightings happening in the Chicago area. So I reached out to an expert there. But if you have a story or a suggestion for stories from the 78, please let me know. This thing says I got a chat, but I don't know even how to access the chat. Let's see if I can, maybe if I do. Oh, right here. Let's see. What does this say? Studio chat. Somebody said hi, so I'm going to say hi. Thank you for watching. We'll show it on here. Thanks for watching. I'm going to type this right now. I've never done this before. Watching. And for those asking, I can't spell right now as I'm talking live on TV, but or whatever. So I just wrote thanks for watching. This is live. This is a real background. This isn't fake. So I'll do a little bit of this. So some record collection, my kids' artwork, some of the hats I have, concert posters. Of course, you got the leg lamp, because you can't have an office without a leg lamp, right? And for those of you who want to be bougie about it, I don't care. Don't like it then. And then you got some more stuff. So I'm surrounded by all the things that I love in this life. There's my family up there, my brothers, my kids, my wife, my friends. And I got a podcast I'll be doing a little bit later on about my buddy Daryl. And I've been keeping this right here. So Daryl Claiborne, he passed during COVID because COVID killed him. And Daryl was the guy that everybody thought would outlive everybody. We all thought he was going to live to be like 140. Turned out he only lived to be like 43. And yeah, got him. So there's going to be a whole podcast about that. I think that's what I'm going to do next for this Stories from the 78 podcast. I'm just going to do it about Daryl. But this is the last one of this series for now. There are 22, I believe, episodes of me rambling like this. I hope you find it somewhat interesting, and if you don't, that's fine too. Either way, I'm doing this because I want to. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And again, the website, storiesfromthe78.com. Tell your friends about it. Tell your grandma about it. I'll take whoever I can get. And again, thanks for watching. And I will see you guys for the next season, which will be coming out hopefully by the end of the year. I got a kid on the way, so we'll see what that timing works out as. But everybody that's watched, thank you. Keep watching. Share the videos if you could that are on YouTube. And yeah, again, just thanks because it's been great. And I will talk to you later. See ya.